This is the original pin punisher. I've been bowling all my life. Professional bowling is my passion, and now I'm here to share it with you.
So today, we are going over the Eiffel Tower. This is a 48-foot pattern, and you're thinking, wow, that's a lot of oil. But it's not as much oil as you may think. The overall structure of this pattern is it's only oiled to 35 feet, and then it's buffed the rest of the way. So what that means is it takes whatever oil is left in the brush and just squeegees it down all the way to 48 feet from 35 feet. So it's not actually giving the full amount of oil. This is a 25 milliliter pattern, which is about an average. I would say 30 is kind of on the heavy oil side, 20 is on the light oil side, so you got about a mediumly oiled pattern. And it's a fairly flat, I would say, but you see most of the structure in from about 12 to 17 range is where you start to see where all the oil is mounded up at. So generally, you want to try to be in the higher concentration of oil when you bowl on this kind of pattern. So with most of the structure in this pattern being around 12 to 17, what you want to do is, in order to get a quick start on this pattern, say like you're in practice and you got a good amount of time, go ahead and break your lane down. So in other words, that means take a lot of surface on a bowling ball and break down anywhere from 8 to 12 or a little bit further left. So anywhere between about 7 to 13, you want to break that whole zone down. You want to make it as dry as you possibly can, although you don't want to be crossing by the headpin. You want to try to keep on the right side of the headpin. And what this does is it develops a dry spot to the right of where your break point needs to be. This way you can give yourself a little bit of miss room to the right, and you'll be able to have a little more room without having to feel like you gotta split boards on the fresh when it's, this pattern's a little bit flat to begin with. It's only like a 1 to 2, 1 to 3, so you may as well give yourself as much opportunity as possible to get off to a quick start. So when you're starting out on this pattern, after you've broken it down, or if you don't break it down, that's okay. What you generally want to start out is about the third arrow, so around about 15 is where you want to be crossing at the arrows. Your break point should never really be outside of 10. You could probably keep it as far into as 15 or so, maybe even more if you have the right ball in your hands. But as you start to bowl on this pattern, you notice the further you play right, the faster it breaks down. And then when you start moving left into that oil, you notice the pattern will hold up a little bit longer. So in the start, you want to be anywhere between 15 and 20 at the arrows, and you want your ball going into the 3-6 or the 3-pin as a general launch angle off your hand. As the pattern breaks down, you're going to keep your break point about the same, and you're going to keep throwing it into the 3-6 or the 3-pin the whole time, but you're going to keep moving. So once you see your ball start to hook a little early and it doesn't seem like you can, miss to the left and have it just slide all the way to the pocket, that's a telltale sign that you need to start moving left on this pattern. So, quick recap. On the start of this pattern, you start around 15 to 20 at the arrows, and you keep it pretty close to the pocket. You don't give it away too much, and then as the pattern breaks down, you can move left and you can start to bend it just a little bit, but not a lot. You still want to keep it towards your 3-6 or 3-pin. I'd say when you're in the transition mode of this pattern, you're going to be close to 25 at the arrows, and you're going to be kind of throwing it just to the right of the 3-pin, and the ball is going to be kind of sliding most of the way. If you are using too strong of a ball, you'll notice that you'll put it right in that zone, but the ball just kind of seems to hook early and goes past the headpin on you, no matter how far you move left. So it's important to keep a strong enough ball or a weak enough ball in your hand. Now on the burn, you may start to want to loft it over the front part of the lane, because if you get too far left on this pattern with your laydown, you will run into that buff zone in the front part of the lane, and your ball will read too early regardless. So on the burn, it's okay to loft the heads a little bit or get a weak enough ball in your hands to have it slide through that friction zone in the front part of the lane. type of equipment that you want to be throwing on this pattern are your stronger symmetrical pieces, and to start or maybe dry the lane up, you can start with a strong asymmetric ball. You generally want this asymmetric ball a little bit duller, and you want to be able to have it drilled so it's going very smooth and kind of continuous. You don't want it to hook stop too early, because again, you're not working with a ton of head oil on this kind of pattern. So for me, I like to use cores that range anywhere from, in the RG zone, of 248 to about 253 to start with, and differential of 030 to 050. So pretty strong cores, even all the way to the end. Well, what I do with the equipment is I'll keep the stronger cores in my hands the whole time, but I'll have a little bit weaker covers. So I'll start out with, say, a phase 2, which is a 248045 core, which is pretty medium strong, and then I'll gradually migrate down to a weaker shell but still a strong core, something that's like a Game Breaker 3 that has pretty much the same numbers, but its cover is much weaker and gets down lane a little bit better. So you're not really going to need to throw the super weak bowling balls on this kind of pattern. So the types of equipment I like to keep are the symmetrical balls for when it's a little bit flatter, medium strong cores, and whenever the pattern gets cliffed up, like you seem like you mislift and the ball just slides way too much and you can't get it to hook, I go to the really clean cover asymmetric balls to try to blend out the cliff. Now, I don't use a pearl. I'll use hybrids and solids, but for me, the Alpha Crux, which is an extremely clean, solid shell ball, I have that ball to blend out the cliff with, and it does an amazing job at it. Although you can't really get it anymore, you can get the Rubicon, which has just come out from Storm and Roto Grip, and that ball is the closest I've seen to it yet. I myself am going to be getting one. So that's the kind of equipment that you're going to want to be geared up with on this pattern. So the types of drillings for this kind of pattern is you want your ball drilled so it reads the mid lane pretty strong. It's still clean in the front part of the lane, but you want it to rev up in the mid lane. Now that kind of drilling will be going on your asymmetric balls, and the type of surface you want your asymmetric balls are, you want them fairly dull. That way you can kind of burn up the right side of the lane, and then as you migrate left with it, you have something that will at least tip in the mid part of the lane. Although I've noticed that the higher surface or the duller balls tend to not last as long on these kinds of patterns. And since you're not dealing with a whole lot of head oil, because a lot of this pattern is buff, you'll end up only wanting, you want it like just a little bit of surface, like a 2000 grit to 3000 grit on your stronger symmetric balls. So the drillings I have on my like phase 2 and the Axiom, which are the medium strong symmetrical balls, are like they're pin up, so it's a little bit lower of a valve angle. So the people that don't know the dual angle stuff, these lower valve angle gets the ball to flare up very quickly in the mid lane and stays smooth in the back part of the lane. So what that does is it allows me to get the ball to hook in the mid lane and kind of stop in the pocket for me. Now, as the pattern gets drier, I generally will migrate to something with a higher valve angle, which allows the ball to get through the mid lane a little bit more smoothly or stable, and it stays more continuous, meaning it doesn't hook stop. And I generally try to keep those balls at a little bit duller surface, so depending on what I have. So like I had drilled a Marvel Pearl with the higher valve angle, so it got down lane, but it ended up getting down lane too much, so I needed to hit it with a little bit of surface, like a 2000 grit, and it ended up rolling very well. So you want to have some balls that are drilled to go down lane a little bit, and you want to have some balls that are drilled to hook a little bit on the early side, and you want to have your surfaces at the most extreme 500 to 1000, but you definitely want to have a couple that are 3000, 2000, and then your really weak balls you want to have around about 4000 or polished if you're in a super high friction lane surface. Hope you guys like the how to bowl on Eiffel Tower, and if you guys want some more tips on how to bowl in this pattern, leave your questions in the comments. Like and subscribe if you want me to keep on making videos, although I'm going to make them anyways because this is what I do while I'm not bowling on tour. So thanks again for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, you're the best.